I think it was very important to mention that vocational educational training means an investment, and it's an important investment. And these investment costs can be reduced and improved with the help of augmented training and virtual reality. And in the end, it's very important to remember that the outcomes can only be adjusted if invested properly. I think that Seabery has done a great thing here, and this first international conference will definitely continue, because I believe that once people start understanding about it, they will continue to come and get more information on this. Also from my side, a very good morning to you. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here at the very first Augmented Training International Conference. I'm given half an hour to speak about state-of-the-art skills training, but just to give you a little bit of a background, I like to say I'm Swiss-made, made in Canada, meaning I was born in Canada to Swiss parents, and I had the opportunity of, when I turned 16, that we moved to Switzerland, and I was allowed to do an apprenticeship in Switzerland as an industrial mechanic. And that's one of the reasons that maybe my heart beats very strongly for TVET or vocational educational training in general. And I believe that's one of the reasons why I'm concentrating on the questions. What, for example, are the basic ideas behind TVET? TVET is a hands-on workforce, meaning these people have to have a certain affinity to what they're doing. They're the productive workforce. They are the ones who solve problems when they arise, at least typically. They're industry-oriented, meaning they are specialized to a certain extent within their field of work. They're industry-driven, meaning the industry hires them off the bat and expects them to perform almost immediately. And if we look at it, it's a very large base of workforce, meaning my opinion is that the TVET, or the people with the TVET background, they're the backbone of every economy. They are the ones providing the services. If you look at a hairdresser, that's TVET, a shop dresser, different industries, those are the ones you don't really see. And in the end, what they are, they're a specially skilled workforce. They're actually trained in a specific field which they've decided to go to, but they're also given a certain general aspect. This general aspect is important because they also have handover points of certain skills or certain points. And at this point, it's also important to make sure that they have their team skills, for example, communication skills, soft skills. What are the problems that TVET faces nowadays? There is often a complaint of a mismatch between the industries and what the outcome is of a trainee from the skills. Oops. This is often due to the case or the fact that technology advances extremely quickly, and the education cannot keep up because there are certain cycles which it takes for curriculum to be adapted and adjusted. It's a big challenge also for governments. Then one of the biggest problems is, if you look at the tendencies nowadays, a lot of parents want the best for their children. I'm also a father. I would love my son to become the top manager of ABB or UBS or something like that, no question about it. But I also had to sit down and look at what are his capabilities, what are his passions, because I personally believe that if you do a job, you do it best if you have a passion behind that job, if you like what you're doing. So one big problem is that apprenticeships or TVET is seen as a middle class, or that's everybody doing that. But again, keeping in mind that it's the backbone of every economy, it should actually be more important than somebody who studies at a university or something like that. Not saying that they're not needed, no question about it. Another point is that TVET means an investment in equipment, in hardware, in keeping up to date with the latest technological changes. So that's an investment. There are also high costs there. But if the education institutions do the right calculations, they will realize they're investing a lot of money for a lot of people, rather than middle money for few people, for example. And another challenge is that a mechatronic in Germany, Switzerland, Austria is not necessarily the same level as, let's say, in Asia or in South America. It's starting to change. There are institutions who are dedicated and devoted to try to adjust that. One of the organizations who does this is WorldSkills, for example. They provide a platform where countries can compete against each other and identify what level of quality or skills do their country produce and compete against each other. Why are we here today? I believe that we all realize that TVET is very important, and it lies in our hands to inform ourselves about how to make it more efficient and more attractive. Training can be costly, as I mentioned before. It means real equipment. If we take the effect of for example, creating or airplane maintenance, for example, you have to have jet turbines, but you can't do it on a real plane, because if the apprentice makes mistakes, trial and error, this is the best way to learn something. I don't think anybody would really be happy if the plane would have troubles with that engine up in the air. But you need a real engine to be able to play around with, and those engines cost a lot of money. At the same time, you need qualified and skilled mentors, coaches, assessors, who will provide from their experience, along with their knowledge, what the learner needs to have. This leads to an information exchange, and also builds up on that video before with the creativity and the understanding of one point brings the next understanding, so then in the end you become more creative. And then, of course, a correct mix of training technologies. This means blended learning is a word which always stays in my head. I'm talking to you straight out. There's no current interaction, so how much of what I'm saying is going to stay in your heads? But if I have actions, and if you had something to play with, which had relevance to what I'm saying, this would stay already longer in your mind. Then if I would have a video running, also this would help. So finding the right blended mix of learning instruments and tools and methodologies, that's also very important. Having said that, I believe there is a lot of opportunity with regard to motivational aspects and understanding within the world of AR and VR. AR provides the opportunity to go inside complex models and take them apart without really taking them apart. You can use a QR code equipment and identify individual components based on that. This is also part of the learning aspect. You can understand, for example, how a motor, how the combustion works by watching a movie in the augmented. Then there's also further complex versions that you, for example, this is a wastewater treatment plant, which I used in my former position or in my former company, where you can train very complex situations, very dangerous situations, dangerous to equipment, to the environment, to personal health. And the learner can make their mistakes without endangering reality. A further advantage of such a system, for example, I always like to separate that augmented reality is for me the learning aspect. The virtual reality is actually the place where you can start to assess the people, assess their knowledge, assess their whole comprehensive understanding of the situations. And for this, I would like to take the example, if you think about a pilot. Pilots spend several hours, if not days per year, in flight simulators. But you can believe me, they're not there to learn to fly. They're there to learn to cope with situations which we hope never will happen. And that precisely is an advantage behind the virtual reality aspect. The virtual reality provides the possibility for them to assess a situation, and I'm sure that if any of you have ever tried it, you will agree to what I'm saying. Spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes in such a system, completely immersive. You will feel that you are really there. And you will forget that there's a real world around you. And you will feel the situations which come up. So, for example, if you have a fire situation, you can actually feel that situation, that urgency coming up. What do I have to do? So you're being put out into stress situations under a controlled environment. A further advantage of the virtual reality is that you can reset everything, and you can get the next person to come on board and go through the same situation, and you have the same measurement, the same situation for everyone. So it's much easier to assess these people's capabilities and knowledge within the field. As I said, I'm not really a subject matter expert. I've been given a half an hour, but I believe that I just want to set the stage for the rest of the speakers coming up. I also like to offer them a bit of reserve by taking some of my time off. I just want to put in the summary of the advantages using AR and VR. In my opinion, it's safe. It's definitely cost-effective. I hope I brought the points across. It may cost once quite a bit to develop something, but you can multiply it. You can adapt it. The hardest part is the development of the models with their interaction, with their access points. It's all encompassing. Jesus, it's my mother tongue, but I'm tripping on my own tongue. It's all encompassing, and you can really go very deep with the possibilities within the AR and VR. Another thing which is important, any profession, in my opinion, and I brought the example of the wastewater treatment. Wastewater treatment, if you look at it, what's it about? It's about treating water, which we flush down the toilet. It's not a nice job. But when we introduced this in the former company to wastewater treatment plants around Germany, close to Stuttgart, they actually started promoting this in their regional market, that they are using this system, and it has shown an effect that students say, wow, that's a high-tech profession. It's amazing what you're using. And then the nice advantage, of course, is also that in the VR, you don't necessarily have the smells. So what you do is you get the young people to try the VR first, and then they'll come, and that's when they'll say, oh. But it works. And last but not least, it's very important to keep up to date with today's technologies and integrate that wherever possible. I mentioned that I'm Swiss-made, made in Canada. When I came to Switzerland, I was doing an industrial mechanic as an apprenticeship. The most high-tech we had at that time was a digital caliper, and I thought that was already awesome. That was '87. I'm sure a lot of you can relate with me. And if you just take a look at how technology has advanced within that time until the year 2000, and from the year 2000 until 2010, or 7 when the iPhone came out, and since the iPhone has come out, we have these glasses which we can put the iPhones in. Where are we going to be in 5 years from now? And that's what we have to try and keep up to speed. We have to keep up with those technologies. We have to implement this into our learning system, learning environment, and keep our youngsters motivated. Having said that, I thank you for your time and attention, and I am happy to hand over to the next speaker. Thank you. Thank you.